1.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, April 29th, and welcome to the Transportation and Environment Committee. There are 4 items on our agenda today. The first 2 are the Fleet Management Services Budget and the Motor Pool NDA that work with our fleet management and provide vehicles for our hardworking employees to be able to provide county services by driving around our 500 square mile jurisdiction. But we also know that we are working to clean up the environment, and our transportation sector occupies 42% of our carbon emissions, so we need to lead by example, and that is where our transportation fleet comes in. So with that, I'll turn it over to council staff for some of the high-level readout.
Sure, thank you. First packet is covering both items 1 and 2, as you noted, Chair. The fleet budget is increasing by $14 million versus 24 approved. That's a 16% increase. Unlike other budgets you may have encountered, most of the increase are due to operating costs as opposed to personnel. And I'll just make 2 notes and kind of high level before we go a little deeper. First, the fleet management budget is an internal service fund. It is it collects revenues, quote unquote, in the form of chargebacks to individual departments and funds that are used to provide services. So any reduction in the fleet budget would flow through those chargebacks and make the proportionate adjustments to those departments' budgets. The chargebacks are 95% of the chargebacks historically have affected tax-supported funds. The remainder has been non-tax supported. So most of the impact would be felt on tax-supported funding. The chargebacks, I won't get into details, but are really calculated as a function of how many vehicles are assigned to a department, their fuel costs, their maintenance costs. Departments with heavier use, such as police, will have higher chargebacks compared to smaller departments that have less vehicles or less usage assigned to them. And of course, these are all budgeted, so throughout the year, as fuel costs change, as maintenance costs vary, those chargebacks, those actual costs are passed on through as well. The other note I wanted to make is, in terms of the big picture, I've discussed it a bit on page 5 in section D, subsection 1. What's happening with fleet as of late and for the next few years is they are undergoing a zero emissions transition. They are purchasing more and more zero emission vehicles, electric vehicles and such, to replace existing fossil fuel powered vehicles. Those costs are being drawn from the fund balance for fleet. And we have a backlog right now about a little less than 1,400 vehicles. Over the next few years, as replacements are being made, the goal is to reduce that. The plan currently will estimate a backlog of under 700 vehicles in the next 2 to 3 fiscal years. So again, throughout the 2010s, we had a large backlog. The Great Recession impacted that ability of fleet to purchase vehicles timely. We have aging vehicles with higher maintenance costs, less vehicle availability for certain departments. But this plan is really addressing that backlog over the next few years, and so that's the expectation.
Great.
I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Director Dice, anything else to add about the work you're doing?
Thank you. David Dice, Director, Department of General Services. I have with me today my Deputy and Chief Operating Officer, Greg Boykin, and my Chief of Fleet Maintenance, Calvin Jones, on this item. And I think we have a good story to tell. The county is very aggressively as we've been able to under certain financial constraints and frankly supply chain constraints as well, been making the transition to a zero emissions fleet, particularly in the light duty vehicles. You have an item in front of you today that'll discuss alcohol beverage services vehicles. And the technology is still catching up. Where in the years that we've been pursuing alternatively fueled vehicles, there's been great strides in batteries and vehicle availability. And frankly, what you have before you today represents a little bit of opportunity cost as well. When rental fleets are getting rid of their electric vehicles because they can't rent them, they're getting rid of them at a considerably lower cost than if I have to buy them at market price. So we're sort of honing in on that in order to expedite our transition. So we're looking for opportunities like this across the board. As you know, supply chain has had a tremendous impact, particularly when it came to the pickups and vans. Getting electric vehicles there has been a challenge, but the supply chain's loosening up a little, and the quality of the vehicles is improving. So good stories all across the board.
Thank you. Thank you, and good work with you and your team.
Excuse me?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Gary Nalvin, OMB. I just wanted to underscore one point that was made by council staff, the increase in spending for fleet replacement. That is using money that is already appropriated in the motor pool fund. So that's not going against any tax-supported appropriation for the FY25 budget.
Thank you. It's interesting when residents talk to us about county services, and sometimes I will hear people in shock that a nice vehicle pulled up, and sometimes I'll hear the opposite, that a less than nice vehicle pulled up. So talk to us just about what the vehicles that need to be upgraded, the state of the state of the fleet.
I'll kick it off and let Calvin back clean up. It was a couple of years ago or so, I was interviewed out in the circle in front of the EOB sitting in a Ford Mach-E. And
It would be a nice vehicle.
that would have been one of the nice vehicles. And people see these and they understand the cost of vehicles, but my response to them is on a number of different fronts. One, that particular vehicle's all-wheel drive. It's got a lot of benefits to it from an operational standpoint. Because the question is, well, why aren't you getting like a Bolt or something that's less expensive? And it's only less expensive to a certain degree, but it doesn't satisfy the operational conditions. This is why our utility folks are driving, my facility staff are driving cargo vans and pickup trucks because a Bolt doesn't meet their job requirements. And once again, as the make, models, and pricing of these units advance, they're becoming more affordable and more available on a cross scale of types of vehicles. Now, as to the less than desirable vehicles, there are some vehicles that are they all are in operating condition, but they're less than stellar in appearance because they're older, and we have not had the funding available to do those replacements. And under County Executive Elrich, the commitment that I have made is that we will buy no fossil fuel powered vehicles in the light duty classes. We just aren't going to do it. So but at the same time, we have vehicles that sometimes operate less than 2,000 miles a year.
Yes.
The vehicle may look old, but frankly, it's got very few miles on it. And my inclination actually is to get rid of that vehicle and not replace it with anything. If it's only driven 2,000 miles a year, there's got to be a better way. And so we are looking at pool vehicle strategies in order to reduce the size of the fleet. And problem is that when a department or an office needs it, they need it right, then maybe two people need the same vehicle. And so if it's reduced, that's why we have evolved in the size of the fleet to the number of vehicles we have, because of that sort of dual usage needed at the same time. And it doesn't make sense to throw two people in a car when they have to go in different directions. So, but having access to pool vehicles is something that we're aggressively planning on, so that as we replace these older vehicles with electric vehicles, we won't need to get as many.
Glad you're looking at it that way and assessing the miles per vehicle and recognizing if there are few miles, there's few reasons to have that vehicle or to replace it. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Nothing else to add. I was just, being prepared this time.
Finger on the button is being
just in
prepared.
case-
Thank you,
just
Mr.
in
Jones.
case it gets passed.
Thank you for that. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Greg Boykin, Deputy Director, Chief Operating Officer. One thing David mentioned earlier, and I just wanted to elaborate on, he compared the Bolt to the Mark IV. We did have the opportunity to purchase used Bolts at a discounted price. So the Bolts do have their place in the fleet. And I thought it was a great idea from Calvin's group to look at those used ones from the rentals. So we actually did take possession of some, and they will play a good role in the fleet as opposed to the Marks.
As a Bolt owner, I fully support that decision. If it's me, my 2 dogs, my husband, and a Costco run in the Bolt, it works great. Colleagues?
Do you want to go? Okay, sorry. I don't know if this is on. Okay. I guess one of the questions I want to go back to what we were just talking about, particularly like the light-duty vehicles for the administrative fleet, and I'm glad to hear that we're moving forward, replacing them. In your estimation, and I think Director Dice, you may have already answered this question a little bit, but are we doing it fast enough, and are there enough vehicles available for the folks who need it in our county government now?
We can go faster. It's only money,
Yeah.
but it is money.
Yeah.
And it's also an infrastructure issue, because related to this transition to electric vehicles is the need to be able to charge them. And we have a simultaneous, sort of a parallel project underway to install EV charging infrastructure at county facilities across the fruited plain. For instance, we'll be installing 4 or 5 chargers at the PNC Bank building within the next year. So we're going to be, we have an aggressive schedule to put in a charging infrastructure so that we can actually fuel the cars that we're getting. That's one factor. Again, supply chain. We don't want to, we're not accustomed to paying commercial or retail rates for vehicles. But in the heyday of EV purchasing, no one would sell them to us on a fleet basis because they were making too much money in the retail market. Well, that's kind of flipped a little bit right now, and the retail market is softening in favor of hybrids, which leaves a flood. As Greg mentioned, I mentioned, I believe it was Hertz had ended up getting rid of over 20,000 electric vehicles because they couldn't rent them. To which my response is, I'll take all the ones that I can get my hands on. But there's contractual mechanisms they have to go through to do that. So it's a long answer to say we're getting more aggressive because funding has become more available, as is mentioned by our budget office. But at the cost of the vehicles running about, how much for a Bolt?
Bolt runs right now about 34, I think base 38, depending on what the options are.
So,
But,
you know,
yeah, 34, probably close. Yeah.
So that's 277 vehicles at $40,000 a vehicle. It's pretty pricey in short order. So we are doing that, but the market has only now recently softened enough for us to do it aggressively. Would that be a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. The market is getting better in the electric vehicle space, which is really good. There's more offerings in the electric vehicle space. Although, even though some of the press that you may hear about the electric vehicles may be challenging with regard to market conditions for general consumers, as David mentioned, for us that's been a windfall in availability. Because keeping in mind that we're coming off of the pandemic, as David mentioned, vendors, our contracts weren't situated in a way that would allow vendors to sell them to us. They would be selling them to us at a discount where they could get above MSRP with the general consumer. And so that was a distinct challenge for us. And so some of the aging of the fleet, especially any feedback that you had regarding availability, some of it was centered around that. And so we had to work hand in hand with departments to get assets for them, to borrow assets from other entities, from other departments in order to loan them to departments that needed them, kind of play an intermediary role, just to kind of position vehicles where they needed to be, where end users needed them. So.
Great. Thank you.
Councilman Malcolm.
Thank you. I appreciate the questions that the Vice President asked. I think from the perspective of, I know it's the money issue, but we should be replacing as quickly as we can because of just the repair costs and the efficiencies. And so I appreciate that, that this will make a dent in the backlog. I appreciate that. And also intrigued by the rental market of EVs. And when you think about the usage of the fleet, it's ideal, the way the county uses these vehicles is ideal for EVs in that the short trips, assuming that our charging infrastructure is such that it makes sense. So I appreciate that. I chuckled when when the chair asked the question about the state of the fleet, and it's sometimes it's not uniform. We had a field trip with a department, and we were in a van that really could have been. It's probably on the list of replacement. And I just assumed that they were getting ready for today's budget session. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's like whenever we go someplace to ask for money and the air conditioning's not working, they say, well, here, just give us money. Actually, the thing with the vans is that has been a challenge from a supply chain standpoint. As again, I mentioned when the Ford Lightning electric pickup truck, which is actually a very nice pickup truck, but those were as hard to find as hen's teeth. It's just really difficult because as soon as one became available, there were back orders in the retail market. So same thing with vans. But we're doing better now. And in fact, you have an item in here for vehicles to outfit our facilities department who we've gotten positions to take care of the volunteer fire stations. So we need vehicles for those guys and gals, and they're all electric. So,
Thank you.
Range, Councilmember Balcom, you bring it up. Range anxiety is not an issue for us because vehicles are not traveling during a typical day more than 100, 150 miles. Yeah. So, whereas that would be daunting in a rental environment, operating environment from us is not an issue.
Mr. Mio, you went through everything for the first item, right?
I covered everything but the motor pool NDA, which we can.
Okay. So one other thing that just want to highlight, and it's phraseology that Councilmember Balcom has been saying throughout this budget process. There are a few things here with asterisks next to them, like the fuel cost and the need for the increased cost for the repair contract, things that we just have to do that are enhanced services but should not be considered as such. And so, without any other comments, we'll support this without objection.
The motor pool NDA, as mentioned, briefly touched upon, it involves two items. One is purchasing 20 vehicles for the sheriff's office. This was part of the collective bargaining agreement entered into last year. It's 20 vehicles per year for a total of 60 vehicles. So this is the second tranche of the 20 vehicles. Recommending approval as is, and then, as mentioned, the 5 vehicles for the volunteer fire station maintenance team, $324,000. The GO committee on Friday approved the first-year maintenance cost of that in the DGS operating budget, so this is the acquisition cost. So, again, recommending approval as is.
Great. Anything else from GO committee? Or
No,
you're
we
good?
already did the maintenance.
Yeah.
Might as well get the vehicles.
They pair well together. Great.
And then there's just a third item. We on Thursday's Economic Development Committee for the ABS operating budget, we talked about the zero emission study for ABS. ABS's budget has $200,000 of one-time funding in 25 to essentially look at how best to transition from fossil fuel diesel-powered delivery trucks to electric trucks. Councilmember Balcom raised the point of whether this is needed and whether that could produce savings for the ABS budget. So we didn't have DGS staff available on Thursday, but they are here for any questions to describe what that is for.
We've been talking in this session about the market and the technology. Technology is really not there yet for heavy-duty vehicles. In the class 4 or 5 on up, like the cube trucks, fixed axle vans and things like that. And if you've seen the ABS trucks, they're large, big vehicles. In order to power a vehicle of that size, I mean, you read about it in the news every now and then. Tesla's experimented with over-the-road trucks and things like that. In order to generate enough power to carry the heavy load of those trucks, the truck itself is over half its payload capacity, which reduces your ability to fill it up with bottles and cans and kegs. So one of the things that we are suggesting to our ABS clients is because a change has to happen. That's the one message I try and tell police, fire, everybody, ABS. It's going to happen. And technology is improving, but we might also want to consider some flexibility in using a different type of vehicle or use shorter routes or less payload. Still get the vehicle, but you're not going to be able to carry as much, which means you need to do a route recalculation. Now, we have just started talking to ABS about this. I understood it came up, and the director of ABS said, huh, what? So we need to talk about this, but the message that I want to convey is the change must take place, and we must find a way to make that change. So that's pretty much where we're at right now.
Floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So I guess the question is, do you feel that the technology is there? What will this study involve in terms of rerouting ABS, reconfiguring how they do their business? I mean, because if the technology isn't there to accommodate the vehicles, what will this study look at?
Well, two things. Number one, and I'm going to ask Calvin to speak to this. We actually have funding to purchase a couple of prototype vehicles so we can experiment with what works. We're not experts. They're the experts. They're the logistics folks that are, and so I'm not in a position, no one that works in my department is in a position to dictate to ABS how they're going to run their business. But we are in a position to say, here's the tools you have to run your business with. And so that we're actually, it would be my recommendation that ABS do its own study, utilizing the tools that they have to use at their disposal, as opposed to just our standard reaction is buy me another diesel truck. Mm-hmm. So you want to talk about what we're doing as far as some sample vehicles are concerned?
Yes. So we actually applied for a grant to get a electric box truck. The state had a grant that was out there. We applied so that we can get it, so that we could start piloting some of those routes to see where the shortfalls would be. I mean, we took an early look at the ABS fleet, and we did some random sampling to weigh some of their trucks to see both empty and full, to see if the existing technology would meet their needs. And the challenge isn't that there isn't a truck that can operate an electric box truck, because you can buy them. The challenge is that from a payload perspective, you just couldn't carry the same amount of weight. And so part of the suggestion with the study was so that they could actually take a look and figure out where the shortfalls were, so that we could figure out a total cost of being able to support that transition. Because from a fleet perspective, I didn't know how to, without having that additional information, I didn't know how to move that piece forward without having the additional information, so that I could figure out what I'm buying and what I'm designing a spec to, and also, in meeting with manufacturers, where the need was. So that's kind of how the suggestion with regard to the study came about. Was to try and it was modeling what we did with transit services. If you recall, transit doing a zero emissions transition study and plan to be able to look at some of that stuff to figure out where, they knew that from a range perspective, a battery electric bus didn't meet all of their immediate needs one for one, but by doing the analysis, they were able to figure out exactly, what would it take to transition to zero emissions. So that was the notion behind the study itself, was to get to that.
And I would assume that the study, I should ask the question, would the study be relevant for other departments that use vehicles of this size, carting cargo of this amount?
Sure, absolutely. Again, this is referencing the transit ride-on studies. A lot of it is predetermining route selections and times of day, times of year, and the only other folks that are using large vehicles like this is libraries. Recreation has a couple of vehicles. Recreation typically is using the vans that you've already told me were in sad shape. But we have the same issue with libraries because they're trucks that move books around the county, similar weight load capacity issues.
Would it make sense to, instead of doing an ABS study and a library study, doing a fleet study of these types of vehicles?
Well, except that the intermodal operating environment is a little different. Libraries are going to fewer locations. ABS stores are much more, a larger number of them. Plus, the ABS store routes. This is one of the issues that when we first started talking to ABS before it was ABS, and looking at could we use smaller vehicles more, but a lot of these vehicles are going through alleyways. Because I suggest, what about one of these? You see the Budweiser beer trucks. Why can't we use those? And you know, it's an operating model, so it is pretty unique to each of those two departments. And so I don't think a general study is going to work. They do typically, they know their routes and they know their job pretty well. It's always impressive to talk to their logistics folks. They know what they're doing, but it's a different environment now, and in more ways than one, and quite literally a different environment. And so we're suggesting that they rethink these things.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to pick up, I appreciate those questions. Is it that the technology does not exist yet for those types of vehicles, or is it more comprehensive in trying to figure out the routes and the efficiency for it?
Essentially, it's as Calvin mentioned, the initial daunting threshold is payload capacity. I remember the first time I drove an electric pickup, which was a few decades ago. It was a half-ton pickup, but the payload capacity was only 350 pounds because of the weight of the battery and the driver. So that's the issue at play here. So it's a payload capacity issue, which would argue in favor of shorter routes because you're carrying fewer materials.
So it's the routes. My concern would be that we spend money on a study that basically says we cannot buy the types of vehicles we're looking for, right? Sarah, did you want to come up? You're motioning back there.
Sorry to interject, Sarah Kogel-Smucker, Climate Change Officer. I think just 2 points to add. I think, traffic engineering at a certain point is just a highly specialized field. And so when you're doing route optimization, that is a consultant matter generally. And so this question between the interplay between as far as I understand it, the interplay between the technology and the route, it's not a study to say, oh, we can't buy it, let's move back to diesel. It's given the technology and the routes, how can you marry them in a way that will make this work? And just to interject from a climate perspective, I think, one amazing thing about Montgomery County is taking a leadership role and trying to figure things out that haven't been done elsewhere. And so just to interject and chime in uninvited, that I think that this is such a great example of how Montgomery County can take leadership, that there's a willingness and an ability to figure out not just, regular fleet vehicles, but ABS fruits.
Yes.
We're not persuaded by the argument that no one else is doing it.
That's never stopped us before, right? It was just making sure that after the survey that they don't come back and say those vehicles don't exist and there's nothing we can do. So that's just wanted to, I'm glad, I appreciate that.
Well, and one of the things I would say is it doesn't mean that not all of so what I sincerely believe will come back is that while all of the routes may not be achievable, a good portion of them will be. And so it gives us a path to transition as the technology does.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
And to build on the point that Mr. Jones made earlier about the transit study, I hope you've had the opportunity, or if you haven't, you will in the future, to see the findings of that transit fleet transition study. It's really fascinating. They went into the details of every single transit route that is run and made sure that they're able to fit within the constraints of the available technology. I think this ABS study is doing something similar. And when you have these highly visible county services, you don't want to risk disrupting the operations of those services because you haven't thought things through.
Appreciate tying that all together. Thank you, Gary. So I'm hearing that we'll all support these NDAs for these last item or two. Yeah. And so then that brings us to the second packet, which are items number 3 and 4. Let me just get my notes. Recommended operating budget for the Department of General Services utility non-departmental account, and also the utilities supplemental for the utilities NDA in the amount of $11.3 million. So I'll just tee up the conversation. Is every year, but especially last year, there was a lot of conversation at the council about a term we've been using this year, truth in budgeting, and making sure that things that have been subject to special appropriation go into the base budget. And this is one of the bigger items there. So, Mr. Mia, I'll turn to you for the finer details.
Sure. First, I'll talk about some of the budget numbers, the budget history of how we got here, and then I'll talk more about the bigger picture with electric usage in general. If I turn your attention to page 2, the chart under section B, you'll see in FY24 recommended, the executive recommended $33.8 million, and that's comprised of 2 components in the utilities NDA. One is the straight utilities costs for electricity, most of which is electricity, but also gas and sewer and other minor expenses for utilities. And then there's another line which is more about the administrative costs of the NDA, as well as some of the microgrid projects that the county has undertaken through the NDA. We do other projects for energy efficiency through the CIP, but this is strictly for the NDA. And so you'll see the 24 recommended number is $33.8 million. In the approved budget, the increase for utilities was not included due to fiscal constraints at the time. And so that number, if you look on line 4, was $20.6 million, was what was budgeted for utilities. In the 24 estimated, looking at actual usage through the first 3 quarters of the year, fiscal year, we are looking at $33.5 million of estimated expenses for utilities. And that is a gap of about $13 million. The CE is proposing a supplemental appropriation of 11.3 to close that gap. It's not quite there. Typically at the end of the year, the OMB and the departments will work together to transfer funds from available budgets to from surplus budgets to overexpended budgets. So it does close the gap with the supplemental appropriation. Then on 25 recommended, you'll see that the utilities budget is essentially the same as 24 approved. So the gap, the structural deficit from 24 approved remains at 25 recommended at this point. So that's just the fiscal history of how we got here. What's happening broadly in terms of utilities costs and electricity is that the county is reducing its usage over time. If you look at the chart on page 4, table 2, you'll see what's estimated to be used in 25 is actually closer to 21. So we are coming down from FY22, 23, 24. However, what's also happening is the unit costs are increasing. They've increased almost 36% since FY21. That's primarily for grid source energy. That's the PEPCO bills, essentially. So on one hand, while we are saving electricity, we are reducing electricity usage as a result of energy efficiency projects. We are also spending more per kilowatt hour over the same time span. And so that's essentially keeping our total electricity costs and total utilities costs at elevated levels at this point. So my recommendations overall are to approve the CE's budget as it is, also to consider adding to the new enhanced programs list 2 tranches of $5 million each, which I believe that total $10 million will close the gap, and it will become part of the base budget going forward so that we are not relying on supplemental appropriations going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. And I do support adding that $10 million in those two tranches so that we address that structural deficit and get all of the funding back into the base budget. I have a slightly different question, though, for our team. As the climate continues to change, I see, the year-over-year totals. Do you know how it breaks down by season, particularly winter or summer? Are we spending more during the summer because it's getting hotter and less in the winter, or?
That's a great question. I'm going to put my Office of Energy and Sustainability Chief on the spot, Don Schurman. We do track an awful lot of information. Before Don speaks, we know that where we have implemented energy-saving measures, those buildings, including this one, are costing us a lot less to operate than they did before. So doing this works, but we have over 10 million square feet of space and over 400 buildings. So, and what Mr. Mia didn't mention is that we've also added a couple of pretty significant facilities to the mix with the Silver Spring Recreation Aquatic Center in particular. Now, we'll be taking the Kennedy Shriver Center offline for a couple years. It'll still be heated and air conditioned, but we won't fill the pools and try and heat that water. So some of those costs will go down. So there's puts and takes in this, but the things that we are doing are working, and we're currently generating 12 megawatts of solar energy across the county and expanding that all the time. But as to the fluctuation, seasonal fluctuation, Don, can you speak to that?
Well, not to get in the boss's way, but we are doing 16.7 megawatts.
Okay, good.
Solar, so it's actually a little higher. And with the 3 microgrids that we're going to be bringing on in the next 12 to 18 months, one at MTOC, one at the Public Safety Communications Center, and one at the new 6th District Police, we'll be adding another 6 megawatts of power. To your question about are the hotter summers requiring more energy? Intuitively, you'd say yes. But to be fair, I have not looked at that specific number. I'd be more than happy to go back and look at that and get that to you.
Or constant air conditioning is a constant air conditioning regardless.
Absolutely. Intuitively, you got to think, yes.
I do want to, though, brag on Don and his team. As I said, we track as a lot more information, and we've been trying to get it up so that you could actually see building performance online. Some of that you can, but we're still working on a tool that doesn't violate the county's IT security policies, where you could go on and actually see building energy performance. But we track a lot of that, and love to be able to share some of that with the committee. I think you'd find it fascinating. We do also produce a county green report. It's not just DGS, it's energy saving and environmental things that are happening across that. That's in draft right now, and we'll let you know when that report's available.
Well, I think we will take you up on your offer, because when the budget's done and we resume conversations on building energy performance standards, I think we should have
That'll be important.
A discussion about what the county itself is doing, right? So we'll add that to our list. Just 2 quick points. One, really encouraged to see that the percentage of expenditures for traffic signals and street lighting has decreased from 45 to 25%. So LED works and the transition there, and thank you, Pepco, and thank you, former Delegate Carr, and those who have been pushing in that direction. That's great. Last question I have is regarding the Silver Spring facility, the aquatic center that you mentioned. Is that expected to be, clearly my bias there, is that expected to be the most energy intensive building in the county?
Interesting question. Well, as a very
Or maybe let me flip it. Do you know what the most building energy?
I know it's the
building?
5th largest, but I don't know the answer to that. As a combined rec center and natatorium, it's going to be an energy hog.
That's
There's no way of avoiding that. Water is a terrible thermal insulator. As soon as you heat it, it cools down. So
We can follow up.
it's an intriguing question. I'll get an
So
answer.
you know what?
for
So put a pin on that. When
Yeah.
we have you back to talk about
Yeah.
PEPs, you can share with us.
It'd be great. We can do that.
The energy hogs of the county are.
Okay.
Actually, the Energy Hog is probably the public safety headquarters.
Interesting.
It's a massive
That's a big
building that
building, too.
operates all the time. But we'll get the information for you. Sure.
We'll get you a top 5 list.
Thank you. My first.
Takeaway fodder, right? Things to talk about after.
My first question was about BEPS and what the county was doing. So I think that's really important early in the conversation to find out what the county's doing in that regard. So we'll put a pin on that. And then I agree 100% about putting the funds in the new and enhanced list to make this this NDA whole. It doesn't make sense for year after year to do this supplemental, so we'll try to get that in this year. And then just looking at table 2 on page 4, Mr. Mia, you mentioned that energy usage was going down. How, looking at the estimates across, from 21 to 25, why do we have the expectation that the energy is going to go down from this year? What actions are taking place that's going to happen?
Defer to DGS. They can speak about their projects they've been.
Well, one of the things that we're doing in preparation for BEPS is we are doing multiple projects as far as reducing the energy use intensity of our buildings. We have 24 lighting projects that we're working on just this year, again, to drive energy usage down. We're improving our building automation systems so that we can get them on and off in an orderly fashion to help cut energy costs that way. And then we're using monitoring-based commissioning, where you basically go in, we already have the building automated system in there, and we do the extra effort of doing intense monitoring of it and basically look at where those variations are in the operation of the building so that we can get DFM information they need to be able to service it and keep the building working at its most peak efficiency. So we're working on multiple fronts to try to drive the building use and energy use intensity down. And so we do have some expectations that we'll be successful.
Okay, good.
And I just want to add, we're back to close to FY21 levels despite having added tens of thousands of square feet of buildings. So our buildings are smarter and they're more efficient, and we're getting better at operating them. This is one of the key factors when we go into a BEPS proposition. The example I always go to is the executive office building, which is a tall 16-story building with a big on and off switch. Mm-hmm. It's either on or it's off. And that's no way to design and operate a building, but to just change over that system in the EOB is about $30 million. Yeah. So it gives you an idea of what we're looking at as far as BEPS compliance goes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And along those lines of questioning, Councilmember Balcom, it's very similar to the situation with WSSC, where we know the efficiencies have not necessarily led to lower costs because the cost of operation just continues to grow. So, Council Vice President.
Thank you. So I kind of want to throw a wrinkle maybe in our processes because I think agree with doing the supplemental and appreciate the council staff's recommendation of the 2 tranches, but I would like to recommend that this committee actually ask that this be put on the continuation of services, because I don't believe this should be on the new and enhanced list. I don't want to repeat the mistakes of last year, and we know what the cost is going to be. This is not a question mark, and for our colleagues who aren't here to be able to hear this and walk through this. There are going to be a number of things on the new and enhanced list that I think we should request that this gets put on the continuation of services list.
So I agree with that, and that's the asterisk that Councilmember Balcom has been calling out along the way. I don't know, beyond us saying that we want it there, what will be there, but there are a number of items that we've discussed today that should be on that continuation of services list.
Okay, so I'll make the recommendation, note the recommendation to include in the base budget, not the list. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll support that, and thank you for articulating it that way, Councilmember Stewart. And then, Mr. Mayor, there's one more item.
The supplemental itself, we needed a vote for that one. That's 11.3 million in one-time funds in FY24 to raise the budget to the estimated level.
So that is a vote to pay the bills. That's right.
Please keep the lights on.
That's it. And without objection, we'll pay our bills.
And I just want to note two other cost increases. One is the Resiliency Hub projects. This is an enhancement, but it is an enhancement that is contractually driven in the sense that the county has entered into contracts with a vendor to install microgrids. The contracts, of course, are subject to appropriation, but this would be continuation of that project. We have previously funded the Brookville microgrid this year, and this would be funding 3 projects in the 6th District, 60 Police Station, PSSCC, and the MTOC facility. So staff recommendations.
This will mean that the 6th District Police Station will be a net zero police station.
So that's the direct correlation to this, that the 6th District would be net zero.
Yep.
Okay, so when we talk to our colleagues, we just need to explain it that way.
Absolutely.
Without objection?
There's an increase for solid waste charges. This is simply the trash removal from county facilities. As county's footprint grows based on square footage, the charges do increase. So that's a maintenance of service cost.
And real quick, what is that? I'm looking. What is the base for that?
The increase is $129,000. I don't know, Gary, do you have the base number?
I don't have the base amount. We can look that up. I do want to distinguish between the actual costs of trash removal from facilities, which is much larger than what we pay for this. This is the system charge that the county gets from recycling and resource management that's charged to all commercial properties in the county.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So without objection, we'll support that as well. And Mr. Mayor, that is it? Okay. Real quick before we go, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank David Lorenzo on my team as my lead T&E staffer, this is his last week at the council after joining me 6 years ago. And clearly likes transportation and environment issues so much, he's going to be doing some national energy policy down in D.C. So thank you, David, for everything. We will miss you, and we'll be following and looking to all the good energy policy that it'll help you producing. And with that, we are adjourned.